Welcome back, everyone, to the Unclassified Podcast. It's a very exciting episode because we have a guest on today. His name is Chris Cappy. You might know him from Task and Purpose, but now he's out on his own, and his channel is hot, hot, hot. It is booming. And also, we have a new pope. And it's not just any pope, it's an American pope. And no country ever has or ever will be as obnoxious as we are when it comes to getting our own pope. And I've never been more proud. And more importantly, he's from Chicago. He's from Chicago. I mean, can you believe that? I mean, that's really something.
I just want to go on the record for saying I just don't really care all that much at all.
Really?
Yep, Catholic school kid from, let's see, 4th to 8th grade.
Too.
And at that time, I could have probably named the Pope and told you the history of that and who was in office. Is it in office? That's probably not the right term.
I think so.
Whoever the incumbent is, if you will. And but since then, no idea. I just not Catholic, don't pay a lot of attention to it. The fanfare yesterday, I don't know, there were some cool memes, I guess.
Here in Chicago, it's been electric. It has been, we're turning over cars. It's crazy here. And I wouldn't say it's crazy. I think people are excited because it's like, oh, well, we got a pope from here, and I don't know, no other city has that. So
is the idea that something, because, all right, so like if there's maybe a celebrity or a world leader from like your hometown, you have in the back of your mind, like, I don't know, maybe something good will happen to my hometown. That's not the idea with the Pope, though. It's just pure pride, right? Like the people of Chicago aren't holding out hope that he's going to like drop the puck for the Blackhawks or something, right? Or is he?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think people think he's going to come back. I think it's more so like everyone now knows a guy who has a cousin who might have at one point met the Pope. And that is kind of the reaction here. I think people are just excited because, it was always like it was in like fiction. They would always write there's an American Pope to like signify that something's off and weird. And now there is one. And the fact that he's from Chicago, the city is just excited. I don't think anyone truly cares all that deeply, but I think it's just like a fun thing to kind of.
I think some people care deeply. There were some angry.
When I thought he was a Cubs fan, a Cubs fan, I was all about it. But now his brother's out here, and let me just preface this: I don't want to slander the Pope. Wouldn't be the first time though. Let me tell you this: ABC 7 here in Chicago says the Pope's a Cubs fan. Someone said, I know him, he's a Cubs fan. His brother gets on the nightly news and says, actually he's a White Sox fan. And he's like, I don't know where that came from. But in that same interview, his brother says, yeah, when we were in first grade, our neighbor next door told my brother he'd be the first American Pope. And I thought, that didn't happen. So first off, not only did that not happen, but now it calls into question whether or not you're lying about his fandom. And so now you can't trust the brother. And frankly, I don't think it matters. Not even God himself can save the Chicago White Sox. All that matters is Chicago Cubs, baby. Yes.
All right.
Sir.
Well,
all right. Let's get into our discussion.
Is this a broader indication that we're back, though, is probably what everybody's wondering. I'm wondering.
I mean, I think we're, in terms of where we were, I think we're like back. We're pretty back.
There were some good signs.
I think
there were some bad signs,
back.
too, but yeah.
I think we're so back. Now, I should preface, every time we say we're so back, it's like so over the minute we stop recording. Yeah. Remember, we're like, oh, Trump loves Ukraine. And then, like, 5 minutes later, we get out of this podcast and they're yelling at each other. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, it did not go well. Poor timing.
Wasn't our best. But let's get into this discussion with Chris Cappy. I think it's going to be a great one, and we hope you like it. Oh, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and follow on Spotify. We're growing like crazy, and you guys keep feeding coal into the engine, and it's just like chugging all the way. And do it for the Pope, the Chicagoan American Pope.
All right, we're on. All right, Chris, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time to chat today.
Great to be here. How is everyone?
Yeah, good, man.
Wonderful.
We talked about doing this a couple weeks ago, and I was excited to say that like you were retired from Task and Purpose and just confuse everybody because it was before the new channel came out, and there was a lot of confusion. I pop over to the Task and Purpose videos every so often, and it's chaos, man.
Yeah,
people don't know if you're coming back. Apparently, like it's
I thought it was pretty clear, but then I realized that people are not inside of my head. They do not know what I am thinking, and it was a little bit confusing for a little bit there. About I guess people had thought that like I was just retiring from YouTube or something, or that I was quitting altogether. But nothing could be further from the truth. We're going harder than ever. Yeah. It's great to be back making content again, because we were away for a bit. So yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to say very many nice things here to start off. I feel like that might be the wrong direction to get things going. But your move from task and purpose, kind of building up a brand and owning that channel. I mean, maybe owning is the wrong term to use here, but kind of running that channel for so long, and then the fact that so many people thought that you were task and purpose or owned task and purpose, like I think it's just an incredible testament to like what this creator economy is, and it's awesome, man. It's awesome to see what you did there, and awesome to see what you continue to do.
Yeah, it blew me away. I was shocked by the support. The people really came out and showed loyalty to our team and to me, and it really meant a ton. Because I was worried. I was like, I'm going to post this video about why I left Task and Purpose, and no one's going to watch it, and it's going to be a disaster. So like to see 350,000 people come and subscribe in like 2 weeks, it's just been overwhelming, and it's been exciting.
Keep pumping those numbers up. Ben, where are we at on the agenda here? We got a couple topics we're going to hit on, right?
Yeah, so we have India, Pakistan, we have Ukraine, we have the Houthis, and we have Greenland to finish us out, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. But India, Pakistan, boys, what's going on? Have you picked a side yet? And if so, who? And what's going on here?
I can give a quick 1 minute background to get anybody up to speed here, just on what we know, because it's really messy. And I'm interested in hearing what Chris is doing to try to parse apart the information. But back in in April, get everything started with some confusing dates. April, there was a terrorist attack in Pahalgam and in Kashmir, killed 26 people. India said that Pakistan helped to fund this attack. It was claimed by a terrorist organization inside of Pakistan. We kind of expected some sort of response. That response came on May 7th. India launched a series of strikes into Pakistan. They say they targeted 9 terrorist camps. And that is about where the known information stops and the speculation begins. Since then, it has been absolute chaos. So there's definitely fighting going on. There's definitely been drones flying over each other's territory. There probably were some aircraft that were shot down. But we're seeing AI videos of Pakistani generals giving fake press conferences. They did an AI dubbed Trump statement of Trump talking. And AI dubbed it to say that he approves India erasing Pakistan. So it's madness, but that's about where we sit today on May 9th. Chris, what are you seeing out of all that?
Yeah, the thing that strikes me about all this is, so what I think everyone is saying is that we hope they both have fun. We are not really picking sides here. We don't, the United States has relations with both Pakistan and India, and doubling down on one doesn't seem to be, from an American point of view, a strategic good decision. So we're kind of both playing both sides. China as well. China's obviously more focused on Pakistan, helping them. To me, what's interesting is a couple of things. So first of all, to your point about the speculation coming out of, for some reason, this region, India and Pakistan, I don't know why, but the news and information coming out of this region is always so crazy. Just crazier than even more inaccurate than what you see out of Russia and Ukraine or anywhere else. And it's always been this way. You read news reports out of the Hindu press or whatever, and it's World War III tomorrow. I don't know why, but there's just insane sensationalism from both Pakistan and India. And the propaganda on both sides is more, how do you say it, overt in your face than you would see out of the Kremlin or out of Kyiv. And so that is one aspect to it that I think is interesting, that when war in Ukraine, things would happen and you would know pretty quickly if it was confirmed or not. There's Orixy online that it's things are confirmed. You get pictures of blown up tanks, and you have a pretty good idea of what's going on. You can read in between the lines of the propaganda. But here, I'm like, what? Are Indian jets downed? Are they not? Like, it sounds like probably at this point a few were downed, which to me brings in another interesting aspect, which is like, okay, what is this telling us about Chinese air defense? Because I think most of the air defense that Pakistan uses, especially the sophisticated kinds, are Chinese export variants. And then they're going up against a lot of French technology that India uses. So maybe there's something we can glean here about how 4.5 generation aircraft perform against Chinese air defense. Is there anything that can tell us about, what a war in the Pacific might be like? And then also I'm tracking what was the other thing I wanted to say? Yeah, the air defense piece is fascinating to me, and what we can learn from that potentially. What are you guys, or what are you looking at there in terms of this conflict, Preston?
Well, I was going to say real quick, the weapon systems, we have to be careful with that because, it's similar in a sense to looking at how Ukraine is operating Bradleys or Abrams and say, look, they are or they are not capable of this thing. They're using them in such a different way than we have designed those systems to be used. So I think we have to keep that in mind with, assessing French technology based off their export variants or Chinese technology based off how Pakistan uses it. It's a data point, and I think we will learn from it. But of course, there's a lot of folks quick to jump in, and it fits whatever narrative you want, right? Is Chinese technology superior? Is French inferior? Is like, what is the thing? And I think we're probably going to get on that train sooner than we should. But Ben, have you been watching this disinformation, misinformation mess? Because it's not like anything. To Chris's point, it's not like Ukraine, Russia. It's not even like. I think Israel, Gaza has been a nightmare trying to figure out exactly what's happening. This is levels beyond that.
I was watching. So this morning I watched about 3 hours of interviews. That random, British. They're not British TV. They're just random news stations around the world that for some reason all have a different British anchor, and they interview. They bring on like a Pakistani official. They bring on an Indian official. And it is the most annoying interview I think I've ever listened to before in my life. And they're just like, Pakistan funds terrorists. And like, you don't know that. Prove it. And then the Indians go, well, how come the Americans get to do this? And it's just insane. And even when they lie, they like say that's a lie. And they're like, no, it's not. It is so frustrating, to me at least, to watch. And I'm kind of just... Yeah, to Cappy's point, it's just the amount of disinformation over sensationalism. Like, it extends even to the government, the way they're talking. And India's new thing is Pakistan needs to step back. They need to stand down. I think that's probably true, but they need to stand down, and otherwise they're going to suffer the punishment, is the way one official phrased it. And I was like, all right, let's calm down. So I do wonder what, if anything, is going to come out of this, because it definitely feels like a conflict where they can just go, all right, just go about their day.
Mike, I have a big question here about like what is the desired end state other than just confusion with this misinformation, because it's crazy. Like with Russia and Ukraine, Cappy hit it. You could generally get an idea of what had happened. Both sides usually would tell the same story, just a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Russia says they shot down all the drones, and Ukraine says everything impacted. And you're like, cool, I'll look at the footage and see where I think the middle ground is. In Israel and in Gaza, we generally had one side telling a story, reporting a story, and the other side just wouldn't talk about it at all. So you were left with like, I don't know. I mean, there's nothing to push back on this, which was its own challenge. But here, we're having completely fabricated stories brought up. So like yesterday, let's see, it was Indian outlets reporting that a Pakistani jet had been shot down and the pilot captured. And then the news outlets that reported that deleted those posts later on. So like, what is that? Is that a correction? Like that's already out there on the internet, spreading through comment sections across the entire world. Then I saw reports that the port at Karachi had been hit, like significantly hit. And eventually we started to get information from one of the official accounts running the port authority there, saying we've suffered significant damage, the port is shut down. And somebody had to step in and say, I think this account's been hacked because we're there right now and there's nothing. So like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah, the only way I've been able to, the only information I feel comfortable with like quoting or looking into really is occasionally you'll get a source that'll say like a U.S. official said that a Indian jet was downed. And then it's like, okay, there's probably like CIA officers inside India or other intel assets that are confirming or leaking or giving some of this information to the press. That I probably, as far as anything with like feeling comfortable saying this happened or didn't happen, that's probably it. And then the frustrating part is when you talk about any of this, like you're talking to largely a viewership that, they've grown up, I guess, in a very propagandized world, and they've like lived in this. And so you're talking to viewers who do not want to hear the truth. They want to hear what they want to hear, if that makes sense. So it is more than any other conflict, I think, just a disaster to try to cover, to talk about, to think about. There are some things that I think we can learn already. I mean, to me, it's scary as well as interesting to see two nuclear powers fight. And I think we might learn that, maybe nuclear powers can fight to some degree and not, there's not going to be a nuclear war necessarily if 120 jets have it out over in the sky, which could be scary to think about. It could indicate, maybe I'm drawing too many conclusions here, but the China and the United States could have an air battle over Taiwan, and it wouldn't reach nuclear war right away. I don't know if it sets a precedent, if I'm just connecting dots that aren't there, but these are some things that are standing out to me.
I agree. I think what's interesting about it is I think there's a lot of asymmetry in the strength between India and Pakistan. And I think India has much more to throw at Pakistan than Pakistan has to throw at India. And so I think there's a balancing tightrope there where if India escalates too much, there could be a nuclear weapon used on them. I don't know if that will ever actually happen, but it is, something that could come of it. And I think what is interesting about it is that they do seem to be off in their own world, and they're using Western and Eastern equipment against each other in such a way that is kind of going to show how this goes. And does Pakistan use F-16s still? Do they still get F-16s, or did they ever? I thought they got them during the global war on terror, but I could be mistaken.
They do have them, yeah. A U.S. official yesterday said that they hadn't been used in shooting down Indian aircraft, which was also kind of viewed as an indication that Pakistan shot down Indian aircraft. But they do have F-16s.
Whatever happened to the American officials who lived under a permanent inclination to live tweet other countries' military offensives? Because they've kind of been gone. I mean, remember this? Ukraine, Israel, Sudan, they'd just be like, yeah, so they're going to go in. And they would know the whole battle plan, and they would tell the press. Now we don't hear from them at all. Were they Biden appointees? Where are these people?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm trying to find out which side Jackson Hinkle is on. I don't know if anybody knows this yet. Should give us an idea of where the U.S. falls in this conflict so far.
Yeah. But I think on India and Pakistan, interesting aspect of this is that you could see, and I mean, more interestingly here, is that Pakistan has issues with Afghanistan, and India has been trying to make inroads there. You have to wonder if the ties between India and Afghanistan will grow in an attempt to put pressure on Pakistan the same way, because that's what really drove ISI to go absolutely insane from 2002 to, I guess, probably the modern day, right? So.
Well, actually, I have a quick question for Chris. How do you, because you're doing a video a week, maybe every 2 weeks. I know the schedule with the new channel is kind of in the works. How do you address something like this when, like, this is a major event. And I would say there's probably more than enough to make a video on just on what's happened in the last 48 hours. Does this get like bumped to the front of the queue, or is it like, well, we'll come back to that and we know that it happened so we can always address it down the road?
Yeah, so currently right now I'm probably planning to cover it in a week or two from now. If we're talking content strategy, I'm a little bit changing my content strategy because I wanted to do a little bit more work that, when something touches off in the news, I'm not probably going to cover it right away and might do it in like a couple of weeks. I've thought about maybe starting a different channel specifically for like news, what happens in the minute when things like this happen. But that's kind of like a content strategy perspective. Because in the past, I probably would do something like this right away. But also in the past, it's less valuable to me with a conflict like this, where so much of the information is, we almost cannot agree on what's happening, and it's not clear to me what's happening yet. So I'm more like, if something big happened in Ukraine, I might be more inclined to cover it, or anywhere else in the world. But here, I just at this moment, I'm like, I don't know that I have anything, worked out quite yet, where I'm like, this, I feel good about this. I want to put this out.
It feels like there's a window there. I don't know what the timeline is. It probably depends on the size of the event, but like, to use the war in Ukraine as an example, you probably still today could put out a long 1-hour video explaining the opening days of the war, and people would watch that today. It probably would have gotten more attention back in 2022, but still quite a bit of people are going to watch it today. But if you were to put out a video about the opening 24 hours of the Israeli invasion into Gaza right now, I don't know that it would get hardly any views. There's just been so many other things that have kind of taken over. So it seems like, but if you wait 1, 2, 3 weeks, you get more information, more footage, more details, it could hit even harder. So it's interesting to try to think about the timing of all that.
I think a lot of that has to do with viewer and audience interest. So in the United States, for instance, like, there's very little interest in what's happening in Israel. And the population sizes there are small. When you look at like Ukraine, you've got, there's millions of people in Europe and in the United States that either have family nearby there, or they feel some kind of connection to that conflict. And so there's always going to be that interest. Whereas the security concerns of like Israel, it's 8 million people that live in Israel, and then, 2 million in Gaza, and they're not watching. Like, there's much less interest, and it's sad, really, because it is such an important conflict. But people, I think they're just like, I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with what's happening there, and it feels good, I think, to listen to content about like Ukraine is defending their sovereignty, and that's a very powerful story that just resonates with people like as human beings. But the story in Gaza and in Israel, I think that narrative is less, it's like uncomfortable. It makes you uncomfortable. It makes you think about different parts of the dark side of human nature that I think can, that's my read on why there's less interest in that conflict.
With that, let's head over and talk Ukraine. Ben, any big events? Ukraine, Russia, peace talks?
I think I have huge news. I think we're so back. Okay? We are so back in a way never before seen. It seems like the United States is giving aid to Ukraine again. It also seems like it was not official White House policy to cut aid to Ukraine. That was a Hegseth initiative. Still employed, but that was a Hegseth initiative. And so it seems like the U.S. will continue to give aid. I know that yesterday Trump proposed a 30-day unilateral ceasefire. Do we know if the Victory Day parade has happened yet? Do we know if Ukraine has... did Ukraine blow it up?
The only explosions I saw were in Belgorod. Looks like a small drone impacted in Belgorod. It hurt. Here we go. It hits somebody, like a deputy or something. but I don't think any drone attacks. Looks like everybody was there. They had a good time. They had a fun party.
I kind of liked them teasing that they were like, yeah, we're gonna blow up the parade, to the point where, you know, Modi didn't go. A lot of foreign leaders weren't going. I guess Xi was there. But I would have liked them to have done something just to kind of ruin the parade a little bit more. But it definitely seems like peace is not coming anytime soon. But it definitely seems like we are back to supporting Ukraine. So we'll see.
So much
Cappy,
whiplash there. So like back and forth. I'm getting torn in
That's
so many.
right.
Can they make up their mind? Like the U.S. government is just going. One day they're best friends with Ukraine, then the next. It's like that meme. I think it's a Pakistani meme actually, right? It's like no longer best friends with Jamal. Now I'm best friends with. We'll screen share this meme. I'll pull it up. It exists. You're looking at me like I'm crazy, but
No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. This has just been a roller coaster for me because about a month ago it was like we're cutting off all aid unless Ukraine does what we say, and then Ukraine, from my read, was like, okay, we'll do what you say, and then now it seems like they're turning the eye of Sauron is now looking at Russia, and they're like, well, okay, now it's your turn to play ball, and I think it seems like the U.S. government is learning that Russia is now the speed bump to peace, and it'll be interesting to see the ways that they try to get Russia to do what they want. Are they going to double down on weapons shipments to Ukraine? It seems like they have a little bit doubled down on the positive messaging to Ukraine. I mean, that mineral deal was signed, which was pretty hua, and then now it appears like, yeah, maybe they'll do more sanctions. They'll do more sending weapons to Ukraine to see if that can move Russia in the direction that they want.
I kind of get the feeling that we're just so hyper-partisan right now that it does seem like when a new administration comes in, they have to automatically take the stance in the complete opposite direction of their predecessor. So it feels like that may have been what Trump and team were doing, was like, well, Biden was nice to Ukraine and angry at Russia, so let's flip that around and see what happens. And unfortunately, I feel like we got back to where most people kind of knew that we would be, which is Ukraine is going to be easier to work with, and Russia is not going to agree to anything. Hopefully that didn't cost too many lives in the process of getting there, but the whiplash, I think one way to help explain it is this story about Secretary Hegseth this last week, that I guess to be clear, it's so hard to tell because we don't get any like confirmation from the government of these stories anymore. It's either just ignoring or DoD rapid response account trolls someone. But I guess Secretary Hegseth came out of a meeting with the president and ordered that like shipments full of aid to Ukraine be turned around, and they did because they're like, this is Secretary of Defense. We got to do what he says. But that decision hadn't been made. He was like reading between the lines. So then when they asked the White House and like the National Security Council what was happening, they were like, we have no idea what you're talking about. And that aid was eventually turned back on because it was never really turned off in the first place. The planes turned back around and went over to Poland. But like, I think that speaks to, when the whiplash here. The dude just made a decision that nobody else appears to have known about, that was not in line with what the president wanted, and action was taken. So like, if it's so different. I feel like we're so used to like, well, that's going to be a 6-month process of talking to 97 different stakeholders and we'll never actually make progress, versus right now it's, I said it, turn it around.
Yeah, to me, this all speaks to the beauty of America, because God bless our country that we can, it is a sign that democracy is working in a way, because what other country can just turn on a dime their entire, like, who is as unpredictable as America? I don't know anyone else, really. Like, we are out here showing that the people can show up and say, hey, I want it to be a different way. And it, like, is. And then maybe 4 years from now, like, the people say, I want it to be different again. And, like, it's different again. But then you look at Russia, and it's like 30 years of this, like, plan to retake Ukraine, and this just, to me, it seems like they cannot adjust course in the same way that we can. There are pros and cons to this, but yeah, I mean, that's that's what I see when I see all of this. Like, whoa, why is it going suddenly this way and that way? I don't know if anyone else sees some truth to that.
Don't get me wrong, man. I like the nimbleness. I like the flexibility. I think it's so frustrating when, coming from the military, you start a program and it's still kind of working towards completion 17 years later. For Christ's sake, like, just make a decision and execute. So I do like that a more nimble government. This is to me the example of, like, not that nimble. There needed to be somebody else there to say, like, wait a minute, that was not the decision. Don't act on that thing quite yet.
Yeah, what's the grand strategy here? What's the 20-year plan? Yeah.
Do you think the unpredictability in the United States is, are we for Ukraine? Are we against Ukraine? Do you think that this has had the positive side effect of kicking Europe into gear, but perhaps has the negative side effect of kicking Europe into gear to the point where they no longer need the United States, and so our alliance has to solely rely on values? Or do you think this is a win-win all around? Or is it a win-lose?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I think the Europeans would agree that it's been a long time coming that they needed to invest more in defense. I think that's not like a controversial thing to really say anymore. I think when someone's footing the bill, it's very difficult to have the pressure necessary to move, especially in a place like Europe where policy is so bureaucratic and it's split between 30-something countries. It's like, I think it needed a little bit of a catalyst for them to push in that right direction for defense spending. I think it'll be a good thing for Europe. I think the United States wasn't probably going to be able to rely on like a big European contingent to help us if we were to go to war in the Pacific. I don't know that Europe would be like our main allies there. I think Europe doubling down on European defense frees us up to put more resources to the Pacific theater, which I think, especially over the next 5-10 years, is going to be the big thing for America, I think. You already see, like, in the Red Sea, I don't think Europe sent, like, maybe I'm wrong. It's been the United States mainly trying to restore freedom of navigation there, even though it's, like, mainly Europe suffering and Egypt from all of that. So, the idea that Europe's going to suddenly come and help us out in the Pacific seems unlikely. So us guaranteeing security in Europe seems like a bad strategic decision to me personally. Yeah, I think our values will always tie us to Europe. Like when I was in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, they seemed so sensibilities. I felt like when I'm talking to the soldiers and hanging out with the people there, feels very European, feels like the values are very American. And the sensibilities are very similar to how it is here in the States. So, that's very powerful. That we are aligned, we are allies. Based on that, we always will be. But from a strategic point of view, does it make sense for America to continue to guarantee their security? That's my read on it.
So you said you were in Ukraine. I have a question about that. You were in Ukrainian occupied Russia, is that what we call it? You were in Kursk? What was that like?
Straight up Russia at one point, right?
Yeah, straight up Russia. What was that like? Do you want to talk about it? Because I would love to hear about it.
So when I got there, when you take the 17-hour train ride from Poland into Kyiv, I get there and you don't know what's going to happen, what they're going to let you do and not do, because there's a lot of Americans that come there they can't trust or that might get them killed. So I spent a day in Kyiv getting drinks with some intelligence guys, like the version of the CIA, but in Ukraine. And we just got annihilated, just completely trashed. And they were like, hey, if you want to get into Kursk, we can get you there. Really annihilated. I'm pretty sure it was some kind of silly European absinthe that they put in my drink, mixed with some sort of nonstop, which is like their rip it, put together, just an unholy cocktail. And they were like, what do you want to get out of the trip? Where, is there anything we could do for you? And we're hitting it off. They're like, we like you. I'm like, I like you too. And I said, I would really, and I'm drunk when I say this, but I'm like, I really would be cool if I could get into Kursk, as half a joke. And he's like, actually, I'm really good friends with the guy who runs all of the public affairs for Kursk operation, and I can get you in. And I'm like, oh, what have I agreed to? And before you know it, they've set up a mission for, it's like early in the morning that we meet in Sumy, which is a big city close to Kursk, and really surreal. We just get into this like armored vehicle, and I meet the guys that are going to be driving us through there. And it's the weird part is as you get closer and closer to the border, there's like burnt out, blown up Bradleys on the side of the road and blown up T-72 tanks. And you get to the international border, and beforehand they're warning me. They're like, you sure you want to do this? Because like the Kremlin is probably going to have you on a list somewhere for illegally entering into Russia. They've already opened up criminal international cases with the ICP about illegally entering into Russia. So there's probably a bunch of countries you're not going to be able to go to anymore, like Uzbekistan and Venezuela, if you were planning to go there. And it just felt like I was like, I'm not going to let the Kremlin try to like stop me from just going and reporting on this stuff. Not like I'm going there to make some like propaganda piece. And so you cross the border where you see this big giant sign that says Kyiv and Russia, and they turn on the EW, electronic warfare device, and it's like really loud. You can like feel it in your head. And yeah, it just was crazy day that we spent there. And it really felt like the frontier of the world, just Wild West. No rules out there, just insanity. Yeah, it was probably the most scared I've ever been in my life.
When you say the most scared you've ever been in your life, is it just heavy fighting? Is it the sense of like impending doom?
I felt like it felt like day one in Iraq again, where I felt like a green newbie, and there's like a drone that flies overhead, and I'm like, because you hear the buzzing, goes bzzz, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna get hit by an FPV. And then the other Ukrainians are just like, oh yeah, that's one of ours. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'm not used to like even hearing outgoing. So the outgoing is coming from just 20 feet away, and it's shaking the earth. And then you hear the incoming, and it's like Russian Grad rockets that are like peppering around us. And there goes Preston again, I think. But it's just terrifying because, I'm not used to facing an actual army like that's firing artillery and air missiles at us. It's like unlike anything I've experienced before.
Compared to your time in Iraq, is it, like you said, it's something you've ever experienced before? Is it just magnitudes of, and I guess your time in Afghanistan, is it just a precedent? Is it just your time of like magnitudes of more intensity? Like you actually, like you said, you actually have drones and incoming, as to where in Afghanistan and Iraq you're just patrolling, I guess, less than fighting an army.
It's scary not having a gun. Not even having the safety blanket of just being able to pretend that I have something that can protect me. It was also in Iraq, you have the full power of like a giant military behind you. And there, it was clear to me, I felt like I was being hunted, and it's a different feeling because when I was in Iraq, we're hunting. So it was a different feeling.
Chris, are you still in touch with many of the guys you met over there?
I just heard from Gandalf yesterday, actually, where I'm planning on doing an update and talking to him. He was the intelligence officer who put me on the drone mission where I was in that basement in Donetsk, right near Toretsk. And so I'm still in touch with him. Tried to get in touch with the Kursk guys, but it's very difficult. My understanding is that Bradley, the dudes that I met up with in Kursk that were running that Bradley, I believe at least one of them he's missing. And that was hard to hear. I heard that last week. But some of it's tough to stay in touch with them just because of, like, they're really super strict on OPSEC.
In your interactions with those guys now since you've come back, have you noticed any change in their tone or in their demeanor? We're talking here about this constant change of we are going to support Ukraine, we're not. There's ceasefire talks, there's not. Have you picked up on anything changing at all from the soldiers' perspective?
I haven't been able to stay in touch with a lot of the guys very closely to follow up to that level of detail, but I can say when I was there, the overall, I guess it sounds like you're asking a little bit of like about morale, right?
Yeah, that's probably a good way to put it.
From my understanding, from what all the guys, and I talked to guys that were like in the shittiest details, shittiest spots. Off the record, I didn't put this in the video, but off the record, they were talking about how, they want this war over. They want it done. They've been, a lot of them, you remember when guys were getting stop-lost in the U.S. military? Like, it's like that, but years and years, and not like you're stop-lost for a 1-year deployment. It's like these dudes signed up 4 years ago and for a 1-year contract, and like they've been on the front since then. So but the interesting thing is, even those guys, they're like, fuck this war. Sorry if I can't curse, but like, they're like,
you're fine.
I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be here. I want to go home. But there's still, even those guys that have like the lowest morale are still saying like, screw Russia. We're fighting for our freedom and our sovereignty. Like even those guys, which to me, that was sort of, it confirmed what I had suspected going over there, which was a nice thing for me to hear, that even like these people that don't want to be there still feel like, that's what they're fighting for, which I think runs counter to a lot of what I think the Kremlin propaganda says. That
they're forced into it and don't want to be there, and just, it's a tough part to get across in some of these videos, that every Ukrainian I've talked to wants peace. Like, no, there's not been a single one that's like, what we should do for the next 10, 20, 30 years? Fight. Not one. Like, they just want to live their normal life and go back to school and go shopping downtown and, like, go to the movies. Like, that's what they want. They just don't want that at the cost of losing their entire country to Russia. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, hopefully we see some progress in some sort of talks here soon. Ben, what do we got next here, man?
The Houthis.
We won.
What is going on here? We won, we won, and then they're putting up an air blockade over Israel. It all seems so insane. And then before you know it, like you said, we won. We're not bombing the Houthis anymore. And what happened? I mean, it felt like, again, whiplash, where it was we were bombing them and they're destroyed and they're never ever coming back to. We're pals. We have a deal, and they're very. What did Trump say? They're very brave fighters, or whatever he said about them.
Very, very brave.
So.
Well, the quick hitter here is the Houthis have been attacking ships in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden from their perspective in support of the Palestinian people in Gaza. They said they would stop as soon as the siege is lifted and humanitarian aid is allowed in. Over time, the United States has moved in to protect international shipping, and we started striking the Houthis. They then started attacking us. And what it looks like is that we essentially agreed with the Houthis, you don't shoot at us, we won't shoot at you. And it appears to be holding for a couple days now. The same day that came out, we got news that a second FA-18 went off the side of one of our carriers, which isn't great in any scenario. I had somebody say, better here than against Russia or China. It's like, no, it's not better anywhere. Like, there's no better place to lose an F-18. You just don't want to lose those. But it seems like that's holding for now. The Houthis have said, great, we're just going to hammer Israel from now on. And I think a big question for me is going to be, what do we do when the Houthis start attacking other commercial ships that are not American in the Red Sea? Like, are we just going to watch? There's probably an argument for that we should only be there to protect our own ships, but it feels like that feels weird for some reason. But nonetheless, Chris, what are you seeing with all this?
I'm very confused about, that's what my big question when I heard that there was going to be this like ceasefire between us. I was like, okay, so are they going to attack other ships? But then you hear other messaging. They're like, no, the freedom of navigation has been returned. But then there's so many, the devil's in the details. It's like returned for American ships, returned for everyone, because it's always been the U.S. Navy, and it's been like the implied thing that like we're for freedom of navigation for everybody. So I will be very curious. It'll be curious, to see how that plays out, what they end up doing. It would be a big W, though, if they stop attacking all ships in the Red Sea. And maybe they're just kind of leaving it vague right now so that all parties can kind of change based on how things go. Like, maybe they're leaving it purposefully ambiguous so that if these attacks against Israel, however Israel retaliates, maybe then the Houthis will decide, okay, we're gonna attack other ships. I don't know. I'm very confused. Seems like a lot is up in the air there with the Houthis right now.
Part of the challenge is, I think it's easy on the outside looking in to say, well, it's pretty clear cut. The American ships will go through no problem, and anybody else is at risk of getting hit. But here's the thing. It's not like you have an American ship, other than the American military ships. What's flowing through the Red Sea is like a Greek ship that is owned by a Brazilian company with an American on the board of directors that is Panamanian flagged, carrying Chilean timber to Israel, or not Israel, India, right? Like there's all of these different little components. It's like, wait a minute, are they okay? Are they not okay? What about a ship that's not American but is carrying American goods? And this is what the Houthis have done. They've expanded their strikes into like kind of whoever they want. Because of that. So, yeah, it's not as clear-cut as the ship with an American flag is set to go on through. So, we'll see, man. I have a feeling that they're just going to hyper-focus on Israel for a while and just go after military targets, which, is debatable given some of the strike points in Israel. But they're going to be attacking Israel specifically rather than commercial shipping is what my gut says right now.
I'm just picturing there being some Houthi soldier who's like tasked with he's got like a whole spreadsheet, and he's really in depth on like following the lines of this is an American flag, and he's just an expert. I love the idea of there being like an MOS in the Houthi military where it's like
turns out that guy's bad at his job and he just gets tired at some point and says, I don't know, that one's fine, hit that one. Because that's what it looked like eventually. It was like it's very specific. That was a Russian ship carrying Iranian oil to China. Like, why did they hit that one? It's like, well, the guy was off that day.
Yeah.
I am surprised that they just keep going. Like, there's just no stopping. Like, they get bombed to oblivion, and then they just wake up the next day and they just shoot at the U.S. Navy again and then shoot at Israel. And it's kind of astonishing, right? Like, they just keep coming back, and it just seems like maybe Trump was. Maybe I should have mocked it. I guess maybe they are brave fighters. I mean, they just keep going, and I don't quite understand how to get them to stop if this isn't working.
I thought there was going to be there was scuttle about there being a ground operation, but I guess that never really came together. Not an American one, but
Yemeni
disparate force. Yeah. I guess that's on hold.
Nobody knows, man. It's whiplash, Chris. Catch up.
I cannot follow. I cannot track. Yeah. I lately I've been following the cartel stuff a bunch.
Ooh,
and
really?
and the crackdowns in the United States against them.
Do you want to tell us more?
Well, I've been curious if you guys have been tracking that as well, but I've been following it kind of in the background, looking at these different disparate pieces of news information coming out here and there about like just different crackdowns that are happening within the United States. it's just fascinating to me, the idea that there are now like foreign terrorist organizations operating inside America, given that we designated them as FTOs, which to me, it's interesting to see how they're cracking down on them, the lengths that they're going to. Yeah, the different changes to U.S. military on the border, like the militarization of the border, really, I guess is what you would call it. Maybe this is for a different episode, a different day, but fascinating stuff to me.
It's really or I don't know. To me, it comes across as very complex. So I talked to Stefano over at All Source News a couple weeks ago to kind of get the rundown. The dude's incredibly bright at like just breaking it down very simply. To explain, and he's, I mean, like fluent in cartel, right? Like he knows all of the ins and outs of all these different little groups and the nuances there. But it's wild. I thought we were going to see more activity from the U.S. government, and maybe this is my not knowing the full scope of what we've done, but when one of the first things was designating these groups as FTOs, I was like, gloves off, here we go. And from my seat, it seems like that's played a role in the deportations, but I thought we would see more maybe directed at like cartel heads, maybe even something moving into Mexico. I don't know exactly what that would look like. But I thought we'd see more action against the cartels themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it looks like they're slower walking it than I probably would have thought. It seems like they're... So just recently, Trump offered to the Mexican president, he said to her, he was like, well, we are offering U.S. troops to conduct strikes on Mexican territory. And she publicly said, she was like, I rejected that offer. So it seems to me like the administration is taking every step they can along the road. They're like, let's increase CIA drone intelligence. Let's get a better intelligence picture. Seems like they're building out the base of... You know, the big question is, are they going to will they do strikes without Mexico's permission? Because Mexico just recently, they were like, we don't want your help on our territory. No, thank you. And I think it'll be the decision that they'll have to make at this point will be, do we do it anyway? Do we do drone strikes or targeted assassinations of cartel without that permission? Because they just overtly offered it for the first time that I know. It'll be interesting to see. That's the next place that I want to go in person and find out about, but it's so difficult. I've reached out to it's easier to get into Kursk than it is to get on an interdiction team at the border or something like that.
My gut tells me that we are overestimating the general public, that we overestimate the cartel's military capabilities. They've got crazy stuff like 50 cals and tanks and all sorts of drone drop munitions. I think we overhype that. In a military confrontation, we've got the upper hand. Is not even close. I would argue probably our law enforcement, to a degree, probably has a significant upper hand. Yeah. But I think we are underestimating the challenges of how well they're intertwined inside of Mexican society, especially with law enforcement and government. I think we might be looking at Iraq and Afghanistan as examples of corruption, and they're kind of tied in. And just in a brief chat with Stefano, it's like, no, it's deep. It's really, really, really deep. And I don't know how we tackle that. Every problem can be solved, but that one seems like we don't have a simple solution to it, not by a long shot.
Oh, totally. The Mexican military wipes the floor with the cartel, every chance they get, especially when they're given weapons-free order. The cartel would not stand a chance, but like you said, 100%, it might even be more ingrained than in Iraq. And it's funny because what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan a lot, the way we tried to solve that problem was we threw money at it, lots of money. And that was one thing I was wondering that they'll do. Are they going to create financial incentive to not work with the cartel? Because I think that's what you need to do. I think you need to make them a better offer. It would cost, I think, billions of dollars maybe to be work with us instead. And essentially, you remember the grant handouts that I'm sure your unit probably was a part did in Afghanistan. You give them, here's some $100,000s of dollars, work with us, not
Please
the
don't
Taliban.
be Taliban. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think maybe it'll come down to like we have to do that because there's only so much you can accomplish with missiles in that instance.
So the talk about like striking the cartels or taking action against them, do you know what legal justification they're going to do it under? Because the unspoken truth, well, I don't think it's unspoken, people are saying it more and more, is that there are American citizens in the cartels. And with that, I guess the only example we have of this is Anwar al-Sadaqi, the leader of Al-Qaeda, who was an American. They drone strike him even though he was a citizen, and they used, preemptive self-defense and the authorization military force. Do you know, how are they going to get around, if they do strike the cartels, how are they going to get around the legal obstacle of killing U.S. citizens?
They're slowly opening up those justifications, like with the FTO designation is the first one, and then it seems like, I was surprised, it seems like they're not going to recommend the Insurrection Act, which Pete Hegseth and the DOD were tasked with making a recommendation by, I think, last month. And I thought for sure that they were going to recommend, let's invoke the Insurrection Act. And it might come out that they do, but as far as I know right now, they're going to recommend not doing that, which I thought that was going to be how they were going to justify strikes against the cartel, whether they're American citizens or not. There's always other authorizations that they can work under, like Title 50, which I don't know the exact lawyer aspects of Title 50, but I think there's a lot of leeway with what they can do with that, the deployment of covert operatives like CIA, but that's the justification I thought they were going to use.
Pessimistic side of me says there's not going to be any justification. I guess when you throw in the U.S. citizen piece, it gets more complicated, but what justification are we using to hit the Houthis, right? Like, this whole declaration of war, going to Congress, asking for anything, that's so 1945, man, 41, whatever. We just don't do that anymore. And, I'm not saying that shouldn't be the case, but I don't know that, unfortunately, I'm not sure that's going to be much of a hang-up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of military action, Greenland. So a story was published by the Wall Street Journal this week that said the United States has ordered its intelligence agencies to increase intelligence gathering into Greenland and to identify individuals who support joining the United States. We've already seen Facebook groups pop up over this. This infuriated Denmark. They summoned the American ambassador to... Usually that means you're going to get yelled at, and they're quite upset about it, and it seems like it's no good. I thought that the Greenland thing was dead, but it is not. So, boys, what do we think here? Do we think we are heading towards a EU-American conflict, or do we think this is just going to fade away, or do you think they'll give up Greenland voluntarily? What's happening?
Greenland might soon be harder to get into for an American than Kursk, Chris.
Yeah. The way I look at Greenland is in the context of a couple of foreign policy decisions that this administration is taking, like their stance towards Canada and towards Panama as well, I think, and also to the Gulf of America, their stance towards that. It's this just policy of, it's a direction, it feels like. It feels like it's easy to get, for me to get bogged down in the weeds of, are they going to try to take Greenland? I don't know. It seems more likely that they're trying to, that the U.S. foreign policy is trying to say you know what I mean? Like, they're articulating a view that the Western Hemisphere, the United States, is very interested again in what's going on here, and we have more so than ever before. Because when I would talk a lot about things going on in the Western Hemisphere 3 years ago, and there wasn't a lot of interest, and there wasn't really anyone tracking it or concerned about, hey, what's China doing in South America, for instance. And why are they building a big port here? Does that have dual purpose for military purposes in Peru or wherever it is in South America? But that, to me, that's how I look at what's happening in Greenland. Is that it's part of a bigger picture of the America re-engaging in the Western Hemisphere.
Part of my confusion has been with, to be blunt, with most of the things in the foreign policy arena with this administration, is we have to, like, after the fact, try to apply rationale or strategic direction. And with the Greenland stuff, like, the Arctic is important. Greenland is an important in an important location. Is there anything that we could have achieved by just talking to our friends, the Danes? Like, I don't know what we are accomplishing now that could not have been accomplished with just conversations with friends. Like, did we run that one down and didn't get anywhere? That's where I'm confused with a lot of this. It's one thing if they stonewalled negotiations for a decade and would not allow, U.S. overflight and wouldn't allow our radars on there. And finally, we were like, enough's enough. This is important to us. It's important to the continent. But it doesn't seem like any of that happened. We, like, started at a 10, and it was like, wait a minute, did we try anything else before we got there with a friend of ours? That's what's confusing to me. And then I agree that I don't think we are going to take Greenland or Canada. Maybe that's just my bias setting in that, like, we would never do such a thing. But the way that we've gone about, there are shocking similarities to how we are treating Greenland right now with what Russia did in the Donbass leading up to the start of the war, with the kind of presenting information around how there's plenty of people there that actually want to be a part of our country, and we're doing this to protect them. They'd be better off with us. They're being neglected there by the Danish. And, like, it's a far cry. I'm not trying to compare the United States to Putin's Russia invading eastern Ukraine, but there's a couple of those data points where it's like, hey, stop that. In recent memory, we have seen that used in a bad way. So I don't know. It's confusing to me.
It's so strange because the administration keeps pushing towards Greenland. Yet if you watch any of the Senate hearings they have, the House hearings, they continually have these witnesses on who say, yeah, we don't need to take Greenland. We've never been denied a request by the Danish government to do anything we want to do in Greenland. The 1951 treaty allows us to do that. Denmark has been like, we'll dig ports deeper. You can have the mineral rights, whatever, right? They're trying to be very accommodating, yet they just keep pushing for it. And it is making me kind of nervous as to where this is going to go. The spying thing, obviously taking out U.S. troops from the island, I think would just make things worse, so they haven't. But to spy with the purpose to take over the island, I think is justification to kick out U.S. troops, even if they haven't been. So go ahead.
We do spy on all of our allies. Like, everybody spies on each other. So, like, that happens.
Yeah.
I guess it'd be interesting to know, like, is this actually above and beyond that? Is it more targeted than in the past? Or is it just a known thing that, like, whenever countries get pissed off at each other, they expel a couple spies that are diplomats because they know they're there. And it's just like, yeah, fine, we'll let them do their thing until you do something that pisses us off. A part of me wonders if it's that, if it was leaked for the explicit purpose of kind of spiking tensions a little bit. But I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm concerned about it. And I hope we don't do anything crazy, which maybe might be too much to ask nowadays, but hopefully everything's good. The NATO summit's coming, though, and it seems like we're still in NATO. We didn't expect that in February when we talked, and so, look, maybe there's room here, and maybe they'll make a Greenland Accord, and it'll all be good.
There you go.
But shall we take some questions from the viewers?
Let's hit a couple questions, and we'll get Chris out of here, yeah.
Yes, sir. All right, so the first one is, if India and Pakistan become a full-scale war, would you consider us to finally be in World War III?
No, because it's stayed relatively regional so far and doesn't look like anybody else is getting involved and does not look like it's having strong... It seems disconnected at this point from the other conflicts in the world. There's some in the background with the economic interests. But for now, I still think the addition of North Korean troops to Kursk was, when we look back, I think that's the thing we're going to say, that's when it went global. But for I don't think India, Pakistan quite yet. Chris?
Yeah, I think that's a good read of it. That's I'm gonna go with your answer.
There we go. 2 votes for me.
Yeah, I agree with Preston. Yeah.
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 All right. Well, I can't answer that. I can't start the next one then.
All right, number 2. Given that the U.S. has spent decades fighting terrorism, why is it so reluctant to stop Pakistan from funding terrorism?
I'm glad I don't have to start with this one. I took the last one.
What's the question? Why is the U.S. so reluctant to stop terrorism in Pakistan?
No, why is it reluctant to stop Pakistan from funding terrorism?
Well, I don't know that the United States is capable of stopping Pakistan from funding terrorism. Especially, I mean, the country is so destabilized already. Their economy is in dire straits. You know, what are we going to go in there and like sanction them greater and punish their population? I don't know that there's a way for us to stop terrorism in Pakistan. The United States has long had a relationship with Pakistan that's kind of been a you scratch my back and I'll rub your tummy sort of situation where, you know, if we put pressure on Pakistan, they're going to give us even less probably intelligence that comes out of there than they already do. I mean, that's my thought on it.
I think that's fair. Yeah,
I think... No, go ahead, Preston.
My only thought would be, I think we apply the terrorist label. We were just talking a minute ago. We've got foreign terrorist organizations down south smuggling drugs across the border. So we tend to use, and we've been criticized for this, we use the terrorist label kind of whenever we want to apply to a group or an individual that we don't like. So I think we need to be cognizant that other countries probably do that as well. I'm not super spun up on some of these Pakistani groups that, you know, in this question, it's just very broad, Pakistani terrorist organizations. No doubt some probably are, but at the same time, I wonder if others might not meet the same criteria that we would call them that, but it's just an idea.
My answer is we've tried. We've really tried, and we've done everything. I mean, you have that famous, or maybe it's infamous, Hillary Clinton quote where she says, you can't keep snakes in your backyard, expect them only to bite your neighbors. We've tried. We can't rein in ISI, so until anyone has a solution to ISI, I don't really know how to stop
Charlie
it.
Wilson.
All right. Yes, number 3, and our final and last one here. Are you afraid that further internal strife and authoritarian politics in America will hollow out U.S. hegemony?
Jeez. All right. Well, this one's yours to start, Ben.
Yeah. Oh, this is mine to start?
Yeah.
Okay. I think, yeah. I think the longer we stay divided, the longer authoritarian politics exist, the worse America is. And I think Lincoln was right that you can't defeat the United States from the outside. You have to defeat it from the inside. So I think until there is a solution here, I think we are kind of screwed. But there's always hope. Hope! Yeah, there's always hope. And I think we will see. But my answer is yes. For internal strife and authoritarian politics will hollow out U.S. hegemony. Chris, Preston, thoughts?
Take it away, Chris.
One of the things that I try to do my best is I try to stay out of politics, especially politics in the United States. Do my best to just avoid it. There's a lot. That question certainly is asked from a point of view. There's some presuppositions just baked into there that it's a loaded question, I'll say. So sure. I don't know, you know, if I agree. Yes, overall, if that were to happen, it would not be good for the United States hegemony. I think a question like that, probably I'm probably not qualified to answer.
I'll take you off the hook here, Chris.
Thanks.
And good on you for holding that line, man. A little different approach here is the division in the United States, which I don't think is surprising to hear. We've been this way for a little while now. I think that is very detrimental to long-term U.S. stability around the world. A good example right now is playing out with the Iranian nuclear negotiations. So from Iran, hate them or hate them more, however you feel about the Iranian regime, they have said, we don't trust the United States because every 4 years you guys come up with a new policy about how you're going to work with us. And I get it. That would be exhausting anywhere around the world. It's one thing for like minor policy shifts, but to have this complete back and forth of how you're going to treat a certain country and are they going to be a part of the international community? Are we going to sanction them or welcome them with open arms? You can't plan, think of a business. Like a business can't operate like that. Countries can't operate like that. It's not going to be long before probably countries, it's going to start with countries that are kind of on the fringe, and you'll see them start to go towards somebody who's more reliable long-term. China famously tends to have a very, very long-term view of things, and it's in some ways could arguably be more stable for a country to align with a China than the United States that is good for them for 4 years and then maybe bad for them for 4 others. That makes me nervous. And we're one of the topics today when we were talking about how I think one of the reasons that this administration veered so hard on Ukraine is because we have this need to just do the opposite of what the other guy did. And like, how many times do you do that before friends are grow tired of it and say we just want some stability? That's my nervousness, and that's not a Republican, that's not a Democrat thing. That's the back and forth of our politics right now, and I don't think that's good long term.
Why do you think that U.S. foreign policy kind of stayed the same from 1941 to, I guess, 20 now?
Yeah. The way I look at it is that no matter whether we have a Democrat or a Republican in office, what doesn't change usually is American interests. What's in our interest is the same. And if we have a Democrat in office, I am rooting for their success because I'm an American. And if we have a Republican in office, I'm rooting for their success because I'm an American. And there are different interests inside of America, obviously, but I think people tend to call it like the deep state, and the deep state is creating these policy decisions without anyone's decision. And maybe there's some degree that that's true, but I think what's more true than that is that there are American interests. There are things that are in their interest, and like Iran having a nuclear weapon has long not been in America's interest. And you could say the same about a lot of other foreign policy decisions. And the way that we tackle or the way that we try to solve these problems are very different. I think that sometimes it's bad and sometimes it can be a good thing. Like sometimes it can be a good thing to say, hey, maybe this way that we're tackling this problem isn't working. But it also creates more instability. And I think it's part of like this bigger debate that we're having about like because I think in the Cold War we settled like communism is not a very effective way to run a country and order and manage ourselves. But like how we have not maybe decided if authoritarianism and if dictatorships are maybe a more effective way to run a country than a democratic route. Like I think this might be the big question that like our generation is sorting through, and it's not easy. It's tough because the dictatorships have some advantages to them, and stability being one of them. So, I think maybe 20 years we'll look back and hopefully we'll say like we really settled that authoritarianism is not effective, and that there are ways to rule millions of people across a place like Russia where it's a one commodity economy and you could still rule it in ways that aren't like with a dictatorship. So that's my thoughts.
Ben, let's make sure we clip that just right. So Chris is advocating for a dictatorship here in the United States.
Yeah.
Yes. Please.
I got you, of course. Well, that concludes our episode today. Chris, thank you so much for coming on. It has been a hoot and a holler. And where can the viewers find you? Give us your channel name. Give us your book title, give us your podcast name, give us it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. One day, hopefully, yeah. not yet. Cappy Army on YouTube and pretty much everywhere, Instagram, Twitter. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. I had a blast. I don't get to talk about this kind of stuff that often, so I love this stuff.
Appreciate it, Chris. Thanks for taking the time, man.
Of course, yeah. Thank you so much, man. All right, for the rest of you, remember to like, comment, subscribe, and follow us on Spotify. Give 5 stars on Apple and Spotify, and we will see you all next week. Tomorrow's my birthday, so
happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, so make sure you all comment happy birthday to get the algorithm going, because we really need the boost. All right, thanks, guys.